Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we are so excited because we are speaking on the blessing. Yes, the blessing. But people do not know that the blessing has a pattern and it starts in Genesis. And often people confuse the blessing with material things, but the blessing is more so legacy and obedience. Now, we know that Noah did everything just as the Lord commanded, but Noah did not have a choice. It was a life or death situation. Abraham, on the other hand, the father of the blessing, he had a choice. See, he was already comfortable, but God called him out. God called him out of his familiar territory into a land. That is what God does. He will call us out. So let's go and see where we start in Genesis. Genesis 12:2. God tells him, I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. See, God trusted Abraham would continue to pass on his faith to his family and those around him. Faith is first passed verbally, and then it is visually. See, people seen the way Abraham was living his life for God. They seen that Abraham was obedient. God called him out of that land, the Chaldeans. He left. God told him to go where he was going to go. Abraham went. So Abraham was passing on his faith to others. In Genesis 17:21, we see that all of Abraham's men were circumcised. So they believed, they had the faith of Abraham to do something that was not only drastic, but something that was uncommon. But they trusted in the covenant that was given to Abraham. And when they did that, they entered into that Abrahamic covenant. They entered into that blessing. All right. Next, we see that when we include God, the results are in his hands. So Abraham has an established faith. He is visibly faithful and he is visibly getting blessed. So his servant believes that. Now, Abraham understands that with the blessing comes a legacy. The blessing will start with you, but a true, godly, divine blessing should never end with you. It should continue because through Abraham, we would get Jesus. So thank God that Abraham understood that this faith, this covenant, this blessing cannot stay with me. It cannot stop with me. It will not end with me. His servant understood the assignment. So Abraham and his servant, they both include God in finding a wife for Isaac. That would be the mother of the upcoming generation of the blessed ones of God's chosen people. So Abraham's servant believed in God. He believed in the God of his master. Both men trusted God, and they both believed that God would be successful in finding a bride. When we include God, he is in control, and the results are in the hand of the victorious. Psalm 3:8 tells us to ask of God, and when we ask God for anything, he will give it to us. And we know that when we call on God, when we acknowledge God, and when we invite him into all of our ways, God blesses us. We want to include God. These two men, Abraham seen God's blessing. Abraham understood God's blessing. The servant was a witness. He was a witness and he experienced it. So he knew what God could do. And they knew that they could not do it without him. They included him. And let's see exactly what happened. In Genesis 24:3, Abraham says, I want you to swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I am living, but will go to my country and to my relatives and get a wife for my son. The servant understood that Abraham was successful, but he was wise in the question that he asked. And we must understand that God does not like doubt, but he never gets upset with asking a question of how it could be and how can I do this. See, that's a difference than doubting God and wanting to know how would I be able to achieve this goal that you've placed inside of me. Give me the steps. If this happens, how should I handle it? And that is what the servant does. The servant says, what if the woman is unwilling to come back with me to this land? Will I then take your son back to the country where you come from? Even though the servant believed a bride would be found, it was understood it was still the young lady's choice. It was very much Rebecca's choice if she would come. See, God will always do his part, but we must do ours. Rebecca had a choice. She could have came to the watering hole. She could have did what she needed to do, and then she could have left. She could have left her blessing, even though the angel of the Lord went ahead of her. It says right here, Abraham says, the Lord, the God of heaven, who brought me out of my father's household and my native land, and who spoke to me and promised me on oath, saying, to your offsprings I will give this land. He will send his angel before you so that you can get a wife for my son from there. But if the young woman is willing to come back with you, then you will be released from the oath of mine. So it was understood that God would do his part like he always does. God will go before us. He will prepare the way. He will do everything we need. But it is up to us on if we will walk in that calling, if we will do what God has destined for us, if we will do what God preordained for us, then we will receive what he has. Rebecca had a choice. She could have stayed and she could have helped, but she could have even chose not to come. But thank God Rebecca chose to come. She is the wife and she is now living in this blessing that she chose to receive. She chose to receive it. And thank God Isaac, her husband, had his dad, Abraham, continue to instill the faith of the Lord, continue to instill the word of the Lord. See, faith must be passed on, not just practiced. Because Isaac's father raised him in the will of God, Isaac had a praying relationship with God, even passing it on to Rebecca. When Rebecca is pregnant, she doesn't cry and rant and rave about what's going on inside of her. No, she takes that issue to the Lord. She says, God, what's happening to me? Why is this going on inside of me? Why are my babies tussling? Why am I in agony? And God speaks to Rebecca. God speaks to Rebecca before he speaks to Isaac. You know why? Because she inquired of him. She was the one carrying the child. She reached out to God. And when we reach out to God, yes, he responds. So Rebecca had a relationship with God, and then Rebecca will soon pass that on to her children. See, the blessing requires discipleship. In the house, you have to make little disciples. You have to make your kids servants of God at a very young age, as soon as they can understand the concept that they have a father who has a requirement, who has a calling over their lives. We must understand we all have a calling. There is not just a select few. See, when we come into this world, God has placed his hand on us, and it is up to our parents to show us who God is and who we are to him. So though Isaac passed his faith to Rebecca, he did not instill his faith into both his children. God's relationship with Rebecca was passed down to Jacob because he desired the blessing of Abraham. Jacob wanted that blessing. Jacob desired that blessing. Jacob needed that blessing. And he received that blessing. It is up to us to install the faith into our children. And then when our children become of age, it is up to them to continue to receive the blessing of the Lord. It is work. The blessing is work. People think that the blessing is material. No, it is work. It is hard work, but it is good work. It is work that edifies you, and it is work that builds you into who you will be for God. Now, the blessing activates, and it shows up in real life every single time. Just like with Abraham, the blessing activated, and he began to get richer. He began to grow in wealth and in material things, in herdsmen and in gold and silver. See, the blessing is not money. Money is the indicator that the blessing is activated, but that's not the end result. Money is the indicator that, okay, now you can do what I have called you to do because you have the resources. And Abraham had that. And then Isaac, he gets that. But Isaac only gets that blessing once Esau no longer wants his birthright. That is when God appears to him, because now God sees that his legacy will continue. That blessing is a continuation. Abraham continued to tell not only his children, but those around him. His servant experienced the blessing. His servant lived in that blessing. He lived in that faith. That faith was passed down to Isaac. And Isaac had that faith that he installed into his wife. But Isaac did not continue that legacy. Instead of having that legacy of faith, he began to just have a favorite child, which was Esau. But God says, teach your children this pattern. Teach your children this legacy, because it must continue. It must continue. See, we see two men, Abraham, who understood the legacy of the blessing. He understood the long-term effects. He understood that it must spread wide and it must go deep. Isaac, on the other hand, he understood the path to his wife, but he allowed her to be the one to carry on God throughout his household. Because his favorite child, Esau, he did not understand, and he was not in the presence, nor did he desire to be in the presence, because he despised his birthright. Jacob, on the other hand, the one who receives the blessing, does he live in that blessing? The blessing that he wanted, the blessing that he desired, because now it is on him. Well, we will see. That is all that we have for now. Thank you so very much. I cannot wait to see you next time when we start to see the patterns of the blessing through Jacob and his sons. Thank you so very much. God bless you, and you have a wonderful day. Bye.